I suppose the best way to start is by giving you the backstory of how everything began to unravel. My name is Jake, and I'm 40 years old. I've been married to Lisa, who's 43 for the past 10 years, and we've been together for 13. We have a son named Sam, who just turned 8. On the outside, everything looked perfect: a beautiful house, steady jobs, and an amazing child who fills our lives with joy every day. Lisa and I met through a mutual friend at a barbecue. She was intelligent, funny, and had this way of making everyone around her feel special. We connected immediately and began dating shortly after. 3 years later, we got married and settled into what I believed was a loving and comfortable relationship. But recently, things have started to feel off. It began with small things: a missed kiss goodbye in the morning, less eye contact during dinner, and more nights when she came home late from work. Initially, I thought it was just stress. Lisa is a project manager at a large tech company, and her job can be very demanding. I work in IT, so I understand the pressure of tight deadlines and long hours. But it wasn't just the late nights. There was a growing distance between us that I couldn't ignore. One evening, Lisa mentioned she was going out to buy some things for the house and was meeting up with a coworker named Dan. It struck me as odd because she usually dislikes running errands, especially after a long day at work, but I didn't think too much of it. Everyone needs a break sometimes, right? That night, she spent a lot of time getting ready. She carefully did her hair and makeup, and when she thought I wasn't looking, I noticed she put on some of her sexiest lingerie, the kind she usually saved for special occasions between us. My stomach churned, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe she just wanted to feel good about herself. Lisa didn't return until after midnight. She seemed flustered and avoided making eye contact. When I asked how her evening was, she gave vague answers, saying they visited a few stores and then grabbed something to eat. Her phone buzzed a few times while she was talking, and she quickly silenced it without checking the messages. It was unlike her to be so secretive. Over the next few weeks, these late-night outings became more frequent. Lisa always had an excuse: meeting with Dan, working late, needing some time alone. I began noticing small changes in her behavior. She was constantly on her phone, either texting or checking messages, and she'd get defensive whenever I asked who she was talking to. Our conversations became brief and focused on practical matters, mostly about Sam's school or household chores. The warmth that once defined our relationship seemed to be slipping away. I tried to tell myself it was just a phase, that maybe she was going through something and didn't know how to talk to me about it. But the nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. I started paying closer attention, looking for signs, trying to piece together what was happening. It wasn't long before the suspicion began to consume me, affecting my sleep and concentration at work. I felt like I was losing my mind, questioning everything I knew about Lisa and our life together. One night, while she was out again, I decided to look through her phone. I knew it was an invasion of privacy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. Unfortunately, she had become very diligent about deleting her messages and call logs. There was nothing there that could give me any clues. The final straw came when Lisa mentioned she didn't want to be married anymore. She said it wasn't because of me, but she needed some space to figure things out. That statement hit me like a ton of bricks. How could it not be about me? We were married, for crying out loud. If she needed space, why couldn't we figure it out together? Now here I am, trying to make sense of everything, trying to figure out if I'm just paranoid or if there's something more sinister going on. I love Lisa, and I don't want to believe she could betray me, but the signs are there, and I can't ignore them anymore. I have to find out the truth, no matter how much it hurts. The tension had been mounting for weeks. Lisa's mysterious outings, her late-night returns, and the growing emotional distance between us had left me in a constant state of unease. I needed answers, and I was determined to get them. One Thursday evening, Lisa announced she was going out again, claiming she needed to pick up some supplies for the house. She mentioned she was meeting Dan again. My suspicion flared. This time I decided I couldn't just sit at home and wonder. I had to follow her. After she left, I waited a few minutes and then grabbed my keys. I told Sam I had to run an errand and would be back soon. I followed Lisa's car at a safe distance, my heart pounding in my chest. She drove across town to a more secluded upscale neighborhood, parking outside a nice house. I watched as she walked up to the door, and Dan greeted her with a hug that lingered too long to be purely friendly. They went inside, and the door closed behind them. I parked a few houses down and sat there, my mind racing with possibilities. I waited for what felt like an eternity, contemplating what to do next. Then, impulsively, I decided to approach the house. I had to know what was going on. Quietly, I crept around to the side of the house and found a window with the blinds slightly ajar. I peered inside and saw Lisa and Dan in the living room, wrapped up in each other. They were kissing passionately, and it was clear this wasn't the first time. My heart shattered as I watched them move to the couch, their intentions unmistakable. I felt a surge of anger and heartbreak, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. As they began to undress each other, I realized I couldn't stand there and witness anymore. I needed to confront them, but I also needed to keep a clear head. I stepped back from the window, struggling to calm my breathing. Just as I was about to walk away, I heard a loud crash from inside the house. My curiosity got the better of me, and I crept back to the window. Dan was on the floor, clutching his leg and writhing in pain. Lisa was desperately trying to help him, her face a mix of panic and guilt. It looked like he had slipped and fallen off the couch, and judging by his expression, it seemed serious. Seeing an opportunity, I walked up to the front door and rang the bell. A few moments later, Lisa opened the door, her eyes wide with shock and fear upon seeing me. "Jake, why are you here?" she stuttered. "I could ask you the same," I replied coolly. I pushed past her and into the living room, where Dan was still on the floor, groaning in pain. Lisa tried to explain, but her words were incoherent. "It's not what it seems," she started, but I cut her off. "Save it, Lisa," I snapped. "I saw everything. You and Dan, here in his house." Dan tried to get up, but his leg buckled and he fell back to the floor. "I think it's broken," he groaned. I looked at Lisa, who was now crying. "What have you done, Lisa?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger and sorrow. She couldn't meet my eyes. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I never meant for this to happen. It just did." A wave of nausea washed over me. The woman I loved, the mother of my child, had betrayed me in the most personal way. And now she stood there, crying and apologizing while her lover lay injured on the floor. "We need to get him to a hospital," I finally said. "He needs medical attention." Lisa nodded and grabbed her phone to call an ambulance. I watched her, feeling a mix of pity and anger as she spoke to the dispatcher. I turned to Dan. "You better hope that leg heals quickly," I muttered, "because you have a lot to answer for." The ambulance arrived shortly after, and paramedics helped Dan onto a stretcher. Lisa tried to stay by his side, but I pulled her back. "Let them do their job," I said sternly. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Jake, please. I know I made a huge mistake, but can we talk about this? Can we try to fix it?" I shook my head, feeling a surge of anger and betrayal. "I don't know, Lisa. I don't know if this is something we can recover from." As the ambulance drove away, I stood there with Lisa, both of us silent and lost in our own thoughts. The weight of the situation hung heavy in the air, and I knew our lives would never be the same. We drove home in silence. Lisa had offered to stay at the hospital with Dan, but I insisted we leave. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger, betrayal, sorrow, but I knew we needed to confront this head-on. We couldn't hide from it any longer. When we got home, I asked Lisa to sit down at the kitchen table. I wanted to keep things calm for Sam's sake. He was upstairs playing, unaware of the storm brewing downstairs. Lisa sat down hesitantly, her face pale and streaked with tears. I could see the guilt and fear in her eyes, but that didn't soften the rage building inside me. "Jake, please let me explain," she began, her voice trembling. I held up my hand to stop her. "Explain what, Lisa? How you lied to me for weeks. How you betrayed our marriage. How you slept with another man." My voice was shaking with the effort to keep my composure. Lisa burst into tears, her sobs shaking her body. "I'm so sorry, Jake. It wasn't supposed to happen. Dan and he was just a friend at first, but then things got out of hand. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "You didn't mean for it to go this far," I repeated, my voice rising. "Do you have any idea what you've done to us? To our family?" She wiped her tears, trying to gather herself. "I was lonely, Jake. You've been so busy with work, with Sam. I felt like we were drifting apart. Dan was there for me. He listened to me. I know it was wrong, but I was weak. I slammed my hand on the table, making her jump. Weak? You think that excuses what you did? We could have worked on things, Lisa. We could have talked, gone to counseling. Instead, you chose to cheat on me. Lisa's sobs grew louder. I know. I made a terrible mistake. I don't know what I was thinking. I love you, Jake. I don't want to lose you. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. Do you even understand what love means, Lisa? Because love doesn't do what you did. Love doesn't lie and sneak around. Love doesn't break someone's heart like this. She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away. Please, Jake. I'll do anything to fix this. I'll go to counseling. I'll cut off all contact with Dan. Just please, don't give up on us. I stood up, pacing the kitchen. You've already destroyed us, Lisa. I don't know if this can be fixed. We sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of her betrayal heavy between us. Finally, I turned to face her. You need to tell me everything. I need to know the whole truth. Lisa nodded, taking a shaky breath. It started a few months ago. Dan and I were working on a project together. We spent a lot of time talking, getting to know each other. He was going through a rough time with his divorce, and I felt sorry for him. We started meeting up outside of work, just as friends at first. But then... Then what? I asked, my voice cold. Then things got physical, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't plan for it to happen. It just did. The first time I told myself it was a mistake, that it would never happen again. But it did. It kept happening, and I couldn't stop. A fresh surge of anger and revulsion swept over me. How many times, Lisa? How many times did you betray me? She looked down at her hands, filled with shame. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times. I lost track. The sheer number of betrayals felt like a blow to the gut, and it never crossed your mind to come to me and talk about what you were feeling. I was terrified, she confessed. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could manage it, that I could keep it hidden until it faded away. Well, you failed, I said bitterly. You failed miserably. Lisa broke down once more, her sobs filling the silent kitchen. I'm so sorry, Jake. I'll do anything to make things right. I'll even quit my job if that's what it takes. Just give me a chance to prove I can change. A flicker of hope surfaced, but was quickly smothered by overwhelming betrayal. You think quitting your job will solve this? It's not just about Dan. It's about the trust you've shattered. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. She looked up at me, desperation in her eyes. I know I don't deserve it, but please give me a chance. For Sam's sake, if not for mine. I thought about Sam, our innocent boy who had no clue his parents' marriage was falling apart. I owed it to him to try, at least. But I also knew I couldn't just brush this aside. I needed time to process everything and figure out what I wanted. I'll think about it, I said finally, but things can't go back to the way they were. You need to earn my trust back, Lisa, and that's going to take a lot of time and effort. She nodded, relief flooding her face. I'll do whatever it takes, Jake, I promise. As we sat there in the wake of her confession, I realized this was just the beginning of a long, painful journey. Whether we could rebuild our marriage or not remained to be seen. But one thing was clear, our lives would never be the same again. The days following our confrontation were some of the hardest of my life. Every time I looked at Lisa, I saw her with Dan, and it tore me apart. I tried to carry on with my daily routine, but the weight of her betrayal was a constant, suffocating presence. Sam, bless his heart, was blissfully unaware of the turmoil his parents were going through. I wanted to shield him from this mess for as long as possible. Lisa tried to act like everything was normal. She would make breakfast, pack Sam's lunch, and engage in small talk. But there was a palpable desperation about her. She was walking on eggshells, trying to gauge my mood, hoping for any sign that things could be fixed. I knew she was scared, but I couldn't find it in me to care. My mind was too clouded with anger and hurt. One evening, about a week after our confrontation, I hit my breaking point. Lisa had come home late again, and the old fears and suspicions rose up inside me. This time I couldn't contain my anger. Where have you been? I demanded as she walked through the door. She looked startled, guilt flashing across her face. I was at work, Jake. I had to stay late to finish a project. Do you really expect me to believe that? I shouted, my voice echoing through the house. After everything you've done, you think I'm going to take your word for it? Lisa's eyes filled with tears. Jake, I swear I was just working. I told you, I ended things with Dan. I'm trying to fix this. Trying to fix this? I laughed bitterly. You can't fix this, Lisa. You broke us. You destroyed our marriage, and now you expect me to just sit here and believe you're at work when you're probably with him again? I wasn't with him, she cried. I've been doing everything I can to make this right. Please, Jake. You have to believe me. I don't have to do anything, I snapped. I can't live like this anymore, Lisa. I can't have you here, lying to my face, expecting me to trust you. You need to leave. She looked at me in shock, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Jake, please, don't do this. We can work through this. I love you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this in the first place, I said coldly. Pack your things, Lisa. I want you out of the house. Where am I supposed to go? She asked, her voice trembling. I don't care, I replied. Go to a friend's place, get a hotel room, go stay with Dan for all I care. Just get out. Lisa stood there for a moment, as if hoping I would change my mind, but I held firm. My anger and hurt gave me the strength to push her away. Finally, she nodded and turned to go upstairs to pack her things. I sat down at the kitchen table, my head in my hands, trying to process what I had just done. I knew it was the right decision, but it didn't make it any easier. Kicking Lisa out felt like cutting off a part of myself, but I knew I couldn't start healing until she was gone. A little while later, Lisa came back downstairs with a suitcase. She stopped at the doorway, looking at me with a mixture of sorrow and regret. Jake, I'm so sorry. I know I can't take back what I did, but I hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just watched as she walked out the door, leaving our home and our life together behind. That night, I put Sam to bed, telling him that Mommy had to go away for a while for work. He seemed confused but accepted my explanation without question. As I sat alone in the living room, the silence was deafening. The reality of what had happened, of what my life had become, started to sink in. The following days were a blur. I went through the motions, taking care of Sam, going to work, trying to keep myself together. But inside I was falling apart. Every room in the house held memories of Lisa, and every memory was tainted by her betrayal. I couldn't escape the pain, no matter how hard I tried. Friends and family began to sense that something was amiss. My sister Emily called me one evening, her voice tinged with worry. Jake, what's going on? You haven't seemed like yourself lately. I hesitated, not wanting to unload my problems on her, but I needed someone to talk to. Lisa cheated on me, I admitted, my voice breaking. I kicked her out of the house. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Oh, Jake, I'm so sorry. I can't believe she would do that to you. Neither can I said bitterly. I don't know what to do, Emily. It feels like my whole world has been turned upside down. You need to take care of yourself, she said gently. And Sam, you both need to heal. Have you thought about seeing a counselor? It might help to talk to someone professional. I'm not sure, I admitted. Maybe. Right now, I just need to get through each day. We talked for a while longer, and Emily's support provided some comfort, but the pain and anger still gnawed at me, making it hard to see a way forward. One night, after putting Sam to bed, I sat in the living room and finally allowed myself to break down. I cried for everything I had lost, for the betrayal and the broken trust. I cried for the life I thought I had, and for the uncertain future that lay ahead. The tears came in waves, and with each one, I felt a bit of the weight lift from my shoulders. As the weeks went by, I began seeing a counselor, as Emily had suggested. Talking to someone who wasn't involved, who could offer an unbiased perspective, helped me begin to process my emotions. It was a slow and painful journey, but it was a step in the right direction. Lisa tried to reach out a few times, sending messages and leaving voicemails, but I ignored them. I needed space to heal, and I couldn't do that with her presence looming over me. I knew we would have to talk eventually, for Sam's sake, but I wasn't ready yet. The house felt empty without Lisa, but it also felt like a place where I could start to rebuild my life. I focused on Sam, on my work, and on taking care of myself. Slowly, day by day, I began to find a new sense of normalcy. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments when the pain and anger threatened to overwhelm me, but I was determined to move forward, to find a way to heal from this betrayal. I owed it to myself and to Sam to keep going. And with each passing day, I took one more step away from the past and toward a future that, while uncertain, held the promise of hope and healing. Despite my efforts to heal, the pain and anger from Lisa's betrayal simmered just beneath the surface. Each time I saw her face in my mind or heard her name, the wounds felt as fresh as the day I had discovered her infidelity. I knew that holding on to this rage was unhealthy, but part of me wanted her to feel the same depth of pain that I was experiencing. One evening, while I was cleaning up after dinner, I received a text from an old friend, Mark. He had heard about what had happened and wanted to catch up. Mark and I had been close in college but had lost touch over the years. We arranged to meet up for drinks the following weekend. As I sat across from Mark at the bar, he listened intently as I recounted everything that had happened with Lisa. His expression was a mix of sympathy and anger on my behalf. "Man, that's tough," he said, shaking his head. "I can't believe she did that to you." "Yeah, it's been rough," I admitted, taking a sip of my beer. "I just don't know how to move past it. The anger. It's always there." Mark leaned in, his eyes gleaming with a hint of mischief. "You know, Jake, sometimes the best way to deal with someone who's hurt you is to make them pay. Give them a taste of their own medicine." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Mark smirked. "I'm talking about revenge. Make her feel the same pain she's caused you. It's not the most mature approach, but sometimes it's just what you need to get some closure." At first, I hesitated. Revenge seemed petty, beneath me. But as the night wore on and the drinks flowed, Mark's words began to take root. By the end of the evening, I had a plan that would ensure Lisa felt the full weight of her betrayal. Over the next few days, I started gathering information. Lisa had been careful to cover her tracks with Dan, but there were other ways to dig up dirt. I reached out to mutual friends, subtly probing for details about Lisa's behavior and any potential secrets she might be hiding. It didn't take long to find something. Lisa's company was strict about office relationships, especially those involving superiors and subordinates. Dan wasn't just a coworker, he was her boss. Their affair, if exposed, could lead to serious repercussions for both of them. Armed with this knowledge, I devised a plan to bring their actions to light. I started by creating an anonymous email account. Using this account, I drafted a message to Lisa's HR department, detailing her affair with Dan, and including all the evidence I had gathered. I attached photos, screenshots of text messages, and a timeline of their meetings. I knew that once the HR department received this, there would be no way for Lisa and Dan to talk their way out of it. Before sending the email, I paused, my finger hovering over the send button. Part of me wondered if I was going too far, if this revenge would ultimately bring me the closure I sought. But the other part, the part that had been consumed by anger and betrayal, pressed forward. I hit send. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Within a week, Lisa and Dan were placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. Lisa called me, begging for my help, but I ignored her. This was the consequence of her actions, and she had to face it. Next, I decided to target Lisa's personal life. I'd always been civil with her parents, but they had no idea about the affair. I gathered all the evidence I had and mailed it to them anonymously. I knew that once they saw the proof of Lisa's infidelity, their relationship with her would be forever changed. The last part of my plan involved social media. Lisa had a substantial following, and her online image was that of a devoted wife and mother. I created a series of anonymous posts on various platforms, exposing her affair and sharing all the incriminating evidence. Within days, the news spread like wildfire, and Lisa's carefully curated persona was destroyed. The reactions were swift, her family was heartbroken, her friends were stunned, and her followers were outraged. Lisa's social life disintegrated, leaving her isolated and alone. Meanwhile, I felt a grim satisfaction. She was finally experiencing the pain and betrayal she had inflicted on me. But that satisfaction was fleeting. One evening, as I sat alone in the house, the weight of what I had done began to sink in. Yes, Lisa had hurt me deeply, but my revenge had been cruel and merciless. I had become someone I barely recognized, driven by anger and a desire for retribution. Sam noticed the change in me. He asked why Mommy wasn't around anymore, why she seemed so sad. I tried to shield him from the truth, but kids are perceptive. He knew something was wrong, and it broke my heart to see him caught in the crossfire. One night, while tucking Sam into bed, he looked up at me with those big, innocent eyes and asked, "Daddy, why are you so angry all the time?" His question hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized that my quest for revenge had consumed me, turning me into someone bitter and vengeful. I had lost sight of what truly mattered, being there for my son and healing from the pain. In that moment, I knew I needed to change. I couldn't undo what I had done, but I could choose a different path moving forward. I decided to focus on rebuilding my life and being the best father I could be for Sam. It wouldn't be easy, and the road ahead would be long, but it was a journey I needed to take. I reached out to Lisa, proposing a truce for Sam's sake. She was hesitant at first, but she agreed to meet. When we sat down, the pain and regret in her eyes mirrored my own. We talked about everything: our mistakes, our regrets, and our hopes for the future. It was a difficult conversation, but it was also the first step toward healing. We agreed to co-parent Sam amicably and to seek counseling to address our issues. Lisa still had to face the consequences of her actions at work and in her personal life, but we both knew that moving forward required forgiveness and understanding. In the end, revenge had not brought me the peace I sought. It had only deepened my wounds and hurt those around me. But from the ashes of our broken marriage, there was a chance for a new beginning. And for Sam's sake, I was determined to make the most of it. The weeks that followed my conversation with Lisa were some of the most emotionally taxing of my life. We began attending counseling sessions together, trying to untangle the web of hurt and betrayal that had nearly destroyed us. Despite our efforts, it soon became clear that too much damage had been done. The trust between us was irreparably broken. One evening, after Sam had gone to bed, Lisa and I sat down for yet another difficult conversation. "Jake," she began hesitantly, "I know we've been trying to work through this, but I think we both know it's not working." I sighed, nodding slowly. "I know. The trust is gone, Lisa. No matter how hard we try, I don't see a way to rebuild what we had." Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to keep hurting each other. Maybe the best thing for us and for Sam is to end this officially." There it was, the word we had both been avoiding: divorce. As much as it pained me to admit it, she was right. Continuing to live in a toxic environment wouldn't do any of us any good, least of all Sam. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think you're right." We spent the next few weeks discussing the logistics of our separation. We both agreed that Sam's well-being was our top priority. Given Lisa's steady job and the fact that she had been the primary caregiver before the affair, we decided that Sam would stay with her. I would get ample visitation rights and a schedule that allowed me to spend quality time with him. We met with our lawyers to draft the divorce agreement. The meetings were tense but civil, both of us determined to make the process as smooth as possible for Sam's sake. When it came time to tell him, we sat down together, our hearts heavy with the knowledge that we were about to change his world forever. "Sam," Lisa began gently, "Mommy and Daddy have something important to tell you." He looked up from his toy cars, sensing the seriousness in our voices. "What is it?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Mommy and Daddy have decided that we're going to live in different houses from now on. But we both love you very much, and you'll get to spend time with both of us." His eyes widened in confusion and fear. "Why? Did I do something wrong?" Lisa and I both reached out to comfort him. "No, sweetie. This isn't your fault," she said softly. "Sometimes grown-ups have problems that they can't fix, even though they try very hard." "But you'll still see Daddy a lot," I added, hoping to reassure him. "We'll have special days just for us, and you'll always have both of us in your life." Sam nodded slowly, tears brimming in his eyes. "I don't want you to go, Daddy." I hugged him tightly, my own tears threatening to spill over. "I know, buddy. I don't want to go either, but this is what's best for all of us." In the days that followed, Lisa and I worked together to make the transition as smooth as possible for Sam. We found an apartment for me nearby, so I could still be close and involved in his daily life. We also set up a consistent visitation schedule to give him a sense of stability and routine. The day Lisa and I finalized our divorce was a mix of relief and sorrow. Sitting across from each other in the lawyer's office, the finality hit me hard. This marked the end of an important chapter in my life, one filled with both cherished memories and painful betrayals. After signing the papers, Lisa reached out and took my hand. "Jake, I'm deeply sorry for everything. I hope one day you'll find it in your heart to forgive me." I looked into her eyes, seeing the remorse and sadness. "I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive you, Lisa, but I do want to move forward. For Sam's sake, we need to find a way to co-parent and stay civil." She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'll do whatever it takes to make this work." In the weeks that followed, we adjusted to our new routines. Sam stayed with Lisa during the week and spent weekends with me. It was a tough adjustment for all of us, but we did our best to make it work. I focused on creating a warm and welcoming environment in my new apartment, a place where Sam could feel at home. The first weekend Sam spent with me was a blend of joy and sadness. We played his favorite games, visited the park, and had a movie night with popcorn and all his favorite treats. But when it was time to take him back to Lisa's, he clung to me, not wanting to let go. It broke my heart to see him so torn, but I reassured him that we would see each other again soon. As the months passed, the pain of the divorce began to fade. I continued seeing my counselor, working through my feelings of betrayal and anger. I focused on being the best father I could be, making the most of the time I had with Sam. Lisa and I managed to maintain a civil relationship, putting aside our differences for the sake of our son. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of tension and frustration, but we both knew it was necessary. We attended school events together, coordinated holiday plans, and communicated openly about Sam's needs and activities. One evening, after dropping Sam off at Lisa's, I sat alone in my apartment, reflecting on the journey I had been through. The pain of Lisa's betrayal was still there, but it no longer defined me. I had found a new sense of strength and resilience, and I was determined to build a better future for myself and my son. As I looked around my apartment, I realized that this was my new beginning. It wasn't the life I had envisioned, but it was a chance to start over, to create something positive out of the ruins of my old life. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them head on. In time, I hoped to find love again, to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. But for now, my focus was on healing, on being there for Sam, and on finding my own path forward. The road ahead was uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure: I was stronger than I had ever realized, and I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. The year that followed our divorce was one of growth and self-discovery. As I navigated life as a single father, I learned a lot about myself and the strength I possessed. The pain of Lisa's betrayal never fully disappeared, but it became a part of my past, a lesson rather than a defining feature of my present. Lisa and I continued to co-parent Sam as best we could. There were rough patches and disagreements, but we always came back to the same guiding principle: Sam's well-being came first. We attended a few joint counseling sessions to learn how to communicate effectively and handle conflicts for Sam's sake. Slowly, we began to rebuild a semblance of trust, not as spouses, but as co-parents. Sam adjusted to the new arrangement better than I had hoped. He still had moments of confusion and sadness, but Lisa and I worked hard to reassure him that he was loved and that both of his parents were committed to his happiness. As he settled into the routine of splitting his time between our homes, he seemed to find a new sense of stability. One summer evening, as Sam and I sat on the porch of my apartment, watching the fireflies dance in the twilight, he turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Daddy, do you still love Mommy?" The question caught me off guard, but I knew it was important to answer honestly. "I care about your mom, Sam. She gave me you, and for that, I'll always be grateful. But sometimes, grown-ups can't stay together, even if they care about each other. It's not because of you, and it's not your fault." He nodded, seemingly satisfied with my answer. "I'm glad I have both of you," he said quietly. "Me too, buddy," I replied, hugging him close. "Me too." As the months passed, I focused on creating new memories with Sam. We took road trips, explored new hobbies, and spent a lot of time outdoors. I also began to reconnect with old friends and make new ones. Mark, who had initially suggested revenge, became a constant support, reminding me to focus on the future rather than dwelling on the past. Eventually, I ventured into the dating world again. At first, it was awkward, like learning to walk all over again. Yet I met some incredible individuals who showed me that life and love existed beyond Lisa's betrayal. It was a slow and deliberate process, and I took each step carefully, always considering Sam's feelings and my own path to healing. One person in particular made a significant impact, a woman named Laura, whom I was introduced to by a mutual friend. Laura was kind, empathetic, and had a way of making me laugh that I hadn't experienced in a long time. We took things slowly, building a solid friendship before exploring anything more serious. When Laura met Sam for the first time, I was anxious, but she handled it beautifully, being both patient and playful. Sam warmed up to her quickly, and seeing them interact brought me a sense of hope I hadn't felt in years. Laura never tried to take Lisa's place in Sam's life, but she became a positive and consistent presence for both of us. Meanwhile, Lisa and I continued to adjust to our new realities. She secured a new job and started to rebuild her life. Occasionally, we had moments of genuine connection, talking about Sam, reminiscing about happier times, and even sharing a laugh. These moments reminded me that while our marriage had ended, it hadn't been all bad. There had been love and good times, and acknowledging that helped me release some of the lingering resentment. One weekend, during a drop-off, Lisa pulled me aside. "Jake, I just wanted to say thank you for everything, for being a great dad to Sam, and for working with me to make this transition as smooth as possible for him." Her words surprised me, but I appreciated them. "Thanks, Lisa. We've both made mistakes, but I'm glad we're finding a way to move forward for Sam's sake and for ours." As the years passed, the sharp edges of the past began to soften. The pain of betrayal turned into a distant memory, overshadowed by new experiences and relationships. Sam continued to grow, flourishing in the love and support of both his parents. He remained my anchor, reminding me every day of what truly mattered. Reflecting on it all, I realized that Lisa's infidelity, though devastating, had pushed me to confront aspects of myself I might have otherwise ignored. It made me stronger, more resilient, and more aware of my own needs and desires. I learned that it was okay to let go of things that no longer served me, and that sometimes the most painful experiences can lead to the most profound growth. Life with Laura was a testament to that growth. Eventually, we moved in together, creating a new blended family with Sam at the center. Lisa was supportive, happy that I had found someone who brought joy into my life. Our co-parenting relationship continued to improve, marked by mutual respect and a shared commitment to Sam's happiness. One evening, as I sat on the porch with Laura, watching the sunset, I reflected on the journey I had been on, from the depths of betrayal and heartache to the heights of new love and hope. It had been a long and winding road, but I had emerged stronger and more fulfilled than I ever thought possible. "What's on your mind?" Laura asked, her hand slipping into mine. I smiled, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "Just thinking about how far we've come, how far I've come. I'm grateful for everything good and bad that led me to this moment." Laura rested her head on my shoulder. "Me too, Jake. Me too." As the sun dipped below the horizon, a sense of peace settled over me. The past was a part of me, but it no longer defined me. I had learned to let go, to forgive, and to move forward. In doing so, I had found a new beginning, a new love, a new family, and a renewed sense of purpose. Life would always present challenges, but I knew that with the support of those I loved and the strength I had discovered within myself, I could face anything. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms.